Welcome to The Disruption Is Now. Join us on this enlightening journey as we explore how AI is impacting our jobs, careers, lives, and the human experience. Each episode, host Greg Matusky will converse with visionaries and innovators at the forefront of AI, diving into its challenges, opportunities, and impact. So buckle up as we venture into the heart of disruption, and together, let's unfold the future.
And we're back. I'm here with Manoj Saxena, and he is the CEO of both Trustwise and the founder and CEO of RAI, that's Responsible Artificial Intelligence Institute. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We were talking a little bit just before this about some of what you're seeing with regard to the challenges right now that are coming into focus with regard to extending generative AI into the workplace, into the culture. That was interesting to me.
Yeah.
Follow up with some of those points you were making, if you would.
Yeah, for sure. Again, thanks for having me. And I have never been this excited about technology since I saw Netscape and Mosaic. That led me to take $300,000 on 13 credit cards and start my company, which we sold 3 years later. And I think we're at that moment again, where this whole AI and generative AI stuff, this is going to be bigger than the internet. This is going to be a lot more transformative than the internet over the next 20 years. We're at the beginning of the next 25 years of enterprise spending. I call this the .ai spend versus the .com spend 25 years ago. So there is an entire new architecture, there's an entire new set of super apps that are going to come about. And what we are seeing with ChatGPT and Copilots is just like the early days of the pets.com. You know, it's I like to say when iPhone was launched, 3 years after the launch, Angry Birds and Words with Friends were the two biggest apps, right? And we are at the same stage with AI, where the bigger apps have not come out, and generative AI is like the iPhone and much bigger than iPhone. So companies have gone through the two stages. The first stage was the GPT moment. They all got excited. Then they started piloting and experimenting, and now they're hitting the moment. They're saying, oh, this is not as easy to deploy because of 4 big challenges. Number one, they don't have skills to understand how this technology works.
Right.
And we can go into and unpack all this. Number two is these systems have some very unique behaviors.
This is
called
true.
hallucinations and data leakage, and they don't know how to do that. Inconsistencies, right? It makes up stuff. And number three, there are new regulations coming out that these guys don't know how to start steering these systems, because these LLMs are nothing but giant engines, but no steering wheel.
Right.
So you can't steer it to align to different regulations. And then the fourth one is cost.
Right.
People are building this blindly. They have no idea how much the token costs. And I'm seeing horror stories of how... So those 4 challenges are what's going to be the focus and the opportunity to build great companies. You got to overcome that in the next couple of years.
Well, you know, I try to build a great company in my PR firm, and I will tell you, I think you're right on mark, is what I've experienced, because we were very early adopters in our industry, certainly not AI.
Yeah.
I mean, AI goes back 20 years ago, but as I told you before the interview, 4 years ago, someone came to tell me that we were really at risk, and that generative AI would transform the way content's developed, how people communicate. And I said, we better learn as much as we can about that, because the way you got to limit risk in this is to really understand what it can do, 100%. What it can't do.
Couldn't agree with you more.
And, you know, it started with the understanding that this is not software, and you don't get the same kind of consistency that you do with software. And that's, in my business, this is funny, you probably don't know this, but for writers and creators, they have very flexible minds.
Yeah.
So they were never coders.
Yeah.
They never looked for 2 + 2 = 4. They looked for how 2 + 2 could be 75 or something weird and wonderful.
Yes.
And so that's one thing. And the second thing is that this, when it was built, 3 things that astonished me is that it's a general purpose platform.
Yeah.
It's like, here, world, you figure out what to do with it.
Yeah.
That was new to me.
Yeah.
Usually you got software and it had a intended, when Salesforce came out,
Yes.
the name said it all.
Yes.
It was to help you sell.
Yes.
So that was astonishing. And the third thing is that, unlike yourself perhaps, it put into the hands of people like me who knew words,
Yeah.
how to use natural language
Yes.
to get where we wanted to go.
Yes.
And that was startling because all of a sudden you could, I won't say code, but you could direct
Yes.
the machine.
Yes.
And that was totally new to us.
Yes. No, right on.
And so in many ways, it has transformed our business. We sent out a news release this morning that after 6 months, after complete AI enablement in my firm, our productivity is up 10.5%. Our client churn is down 34%.
Outstanding.
And our employee loyalty, in the seats, is improved by 54%.
That's amazing.
Now that last point I think is really important because you don't expect that. But when you have a tool that you train well, you socialize well, you put the guardrails on, and you say, go find out how this works.
Yep.
And it advances somebody's career. They build a sense of self-esteem.
Yep. 100%.
All of a sudden, work isn't being reworked three times.
Yep.
Client disappointment goes away. You don't have to have your boss sit you down and tell you how this has got to be done the right way. And I really think that's been a fundamental part of the success.
I mean, this is essentially, everyone's going to have their own Iron Man Jarvis suit. That's what generative AI is. It's more augmented intelligence than artificial intelligence. So every knowledge worker is going to have their own Jarvis suit. It'll make you a Superman. Because if you're a nurse managing diabetes in kids, imagine having the power of a generative AI model that understands and has the knowledge of the world's 50,000 best nurses who know diabetes. If you're a PR person writing a blog, imagine having the knowledge of the best PR agents behind your Word document that is guiding you. So that is the real power of this. It's like a bulldozer for the brain, right? It's helping you expand the capabilities of your mind, both from a productivity point of view and creativity point of view.
Yeah, and a workflow, right?
Yeah, that's coming soon.
Right.
Workflow, we haven't even yet hit that.
Absolutely.
Agents and workflows are coming soon.
Yeah.
Right now, it's mostly text to intelligence. Text to action is coming next.
Okay, let's talk about that. I love that term, text to intelligence.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? And I'll tell you how I've used a similar concept.
Yeah, so when I look at this, the shift in what's going to happen, right now is text to intelligence, next will be text to action, third is going to be text to creation, okay? And that's where there is all this talk about we become subservient to AI as a new race. But let's unpack the first one. The text to intelligence is essentially the ability of generative AI to understand unstructured data. Because for the last 75 years, the computers that we have built are nothing but giant calculators. They only understand 20% of information, which is structured data. They understand numbers, you can do Excel, you can do math, but they don't generate anything new. They don't understand unstructured data. They don't understand a medical record, a doctor's notes, they don't understand music. Language model is the powerful thing. Everything is language. Text, code, music, stock market science, DNA is language. So now you're looking at a whole new class of systems that understand unstructured data. Today, what we are seeing is mostly document exploration and image exploration. Read up my invoices and tell me which one is likely to fail. That's text to intelligence. Read up how to do repair of a bearing on my rail system and tell me how to repair the bearing, right? That's text to intelligence. What's coming next is text to action. Read my file of a 3D printer house, go build me a 3D printer house. Look at my medical DNA record and build a new DNA to solve my cancer.
So how far are we away from these agents?
Agents are happening now. The future is already here. It's not evenly distributed. Okay, agents are here today.
So what can it move forward?
So it's going to move forward in two big dimensions. One, the workloads that it's going to take are going to expand from text to tables to images to video. I was talking to the guys at Google. Gemini today, the context window is big enough that I can put an entire 3-hour NFL game in it, and I can ask questions saying, what will Purdy do next time on this kind of a setup in real time? Okay? So now you've got these giant brains that are opening up that can digest multimedia, and you can start asking questions of it, and you can start generating actions from it.
Well, I'm an Eagles fan, so I hope Purdy throws an interception. But
exactly. When is he likely to throw an interception?
Right. Yeah. It's amazing because in an untechnical way, I echo many of what you just said. I often tell people who are writers, creators, I say, it took me a long time to be able to write a message, like a powerful message that moved to action. And I really believe that was a condition of training my brain, a neural network that knew how to take a linear path to make intelligence. But at the same time, I needed the information, the data, and that's words and syntax. And that took a neural network too. And great writers combined the two, right?
Organic neural network.
And so what I saw the first time I saw ChatGPT was, let's get rid of leave the age of information, and this is where you echoed that, and move to the age of intelligence.
Intelligence, absolutely.
Where we concentrate on the message.
For example, your job, right? So imagine if you came to my company and said, I want to be a PR agency of record. And here's what I can do.
I do want to do that, but go ahead.
But here's what I do. You would then go and tell your LLM, okay, so you will have a Gregory LLM. I'm just making it up. It's your little brain that understands all this. And you say, go read all his tweets, go read the business plan of this company, go look up all the LinkedIn posts, and create a customized PR plan for this company.
We just about do that.
We can do that. In the next 2 years, you will do it. Right. That's the transformative. So when I say text to action, that is going beyond intelligence to say, create a PowerPoint deck and create 3 sample press releases and also create a website.
And look at their competitors' message and where could we play off that or fill in gaps.
Yeah.
And then look at the media, what they've covered and what they haven't.
That's the text to action.
Right.
Okay, today you're doing only text to intelligence.
Right.
That's the text to action.
Right. And in my business, what has led to disillusionment is what they do is sit down and they say, write me a media pitch about my client. And it comes back with this vapid, meaningless language. They don't do that. The intelligence. Go to the media.
It doesn't have context.
Right. Go to the media, find out what's not being reported about responsible AI. And where Manoj could come in and give a new take on that. And then go to the media with that. And that's that text to intelligence.
So that's so you asked me early on, what does responsible AI look like in this world? I think the companies are gonna, so I look at this as a simple, like a 3x2 matrix. You're building AI, you're buying AI, and you're selling AI, right? All of us, just like we have millions of web pages today, there'll be millions of AIs in 5 years. Millions of them. Little AIs, big AIs. So you're either building it, you're buying it, or you're selling it. And then you have 2 problems you have to manage. You have to make sure that this is responsible, ethical, and compliant. That's one problem. And then the second thing you have to make sure is optimized from a cost and carbon and safety point of view. So responsible is around governance. Optimization is around efficiency and control. So we have to make sure that it's like car. I want to make sure that the car, when I build, is efficient from the point of view of brake and oil consumption and emissions. That's optimization. And I also want to make sure there is enough governance and traffic lights and guardrails and laws that says no more than 60 miles an hour in this zone. So governance and optimization are going to be 2 very important things that AI will need to start connecting to get value out of it.
So are you saying that's going to give rise to these millions of LLMs?
Absolutely. That'll be a requirement, a prerequisite.
Application, optimization that we really don't understand right now because we're just kind of clumsily...
So let me tell you the problem with optimization. People are building generative AI blindly today. They have no idea how much it's going to cost. So these things you pay by token. Right, so token, think of it like a brain window that's like this wide, and I'm paying you no matter if you ask me a simple question or a complex question. And the cost of tokens go up crazily as you start using these systems. We have no idea on that. Number 2, the way they set up the data structures and the pipelines and data centers, that can massively impact the cost. Third, generative AI systems have 1,000 times more carbon footprint than a Google search. So if you were to put an LLM behind your website for your search button, it will cost you 36 times more than a Google search, and it will have 1,000 times more carbon footprint. Okay? So the prediction is that in the next 7 years, the energy consumption of AI today, data centers, is 4% of US electricity. By the end of this decade, in 6 years, that number will go to 25%. So there's a massive crisis coming around energy and carbon use of these AI systems. That has to be managed, right? And then talent and skill sets. People who know how to start build these systems. So the way I say that is, generative AI is like fire or electricity. It's a technology. But what made fire safe was lanterns. What made electricity safe were the GCFI plug outlets. Unless we put these systems around it and we optimize it for distribution, you're not going to scale this. This will be a cool little project. So that's the opportunity in the next 3 years, is to make them safe, make them responsible, and make them optimized.
Well, I do see hope, because people like you are already considering the future risks. When social media came along, no one brought up the risks. We didn't know about it. We don't even know about it today in some respects, right? So I congratulate you on that, and I thank you for being so forward thinking, because if we don't manage those risks, we're going to throttle ourselves right out of the gate.
No, Greg, these are some of the most exciting times to be an entrepreneur, right? This is the second contact of AI with humanity. First contact of AI was social media. And the goal the AI had was to maximize engagement, maximize likes and shares and stuff. This time, the goal is to maximize intimacy, not engagement. So it's going to start getting to know you better than your best friend, your parents, anyone out there, and he's going to start engaging you and getting better and better. So these bots, not just chatbots, these AI systems are going to start becoming your best friends and best co-workers and best assistants. So it's a phenomenal time to be an entrepreneur, to be a business builder.
And to be a communicator.
Absolutely. And what you do with your firm to help companies understand the art of the possible. Right now, we're in the very early days of e-commerce. People haven't seen eBay. They haven't seen Amazon.
Right.
All they have seen is digital catalogs on the web.
Right.
And they are like dogs watching TV, saying, okay, what else can it do?
Right.
The opportunity with a firm like yours is to be able to help expand on what the possibilities are.
Yeah, we call that a coalition of the willing.
Absolutely.
Right.
And that's who moves the civilization forward.
Right.
Those are the people who move civilization forward.
And the more we can get into that circle,
absolutely,
the better the world will be.
It's an exciting time to be alive. Yeah.
In my world, right? In my world, the real purpose of communication is to spur better human understanding.
100%.
And that's got to be for the good.
100%.
When it's all said and done.
That's how we learn. The stories is how civilization progresses.
Yeah, I call it the bento box of the mind, right? It helps us organize facts that we could never remember on our own, but we can understand the story.
100%.
And I'm a storyteller, and now the question is, how do I maintain agency over that process and not delegate it all to the machine?
Well, I think there will be some pieces of the process you will delegate to the machine. There will be a death of boring work. So one of the good things that generative AI is going to do is remove a lot of boring stuff. And then it's going to open up creativity. So I'm a big fan of jazz, right? So in the 50s and 60s, jazz took off. Why? Because the electronic synthesizer got invented. So if I'm a jazz musician, I didn't need 8 people to build a music score with me. And there was a massive explosion in jazz music because electronic synthesizer magnified my jazz skills. Generative AI is the electronic synthesizer for all of us.
Right.
It's going to make us create stuff. Whether you're in PR, whether you're a nurse, whether you are a traffic cop, is going to help us do things much better.
It's crazy. There's a certain type of personality who accepts that and loves it.
Yeah.
I'll give you a quick story. I have a friend.
Yeah.
He does not like to write.
Yeah.
And can't put his thoughts down on paper. His daughter's wedding was last Saturday.
Yeah.
He had thought, maybe I'll write a personalized note to everyone that comes to the wedding.
Yeah.
But he couldn't even write one.
Yeah.
Right. So we're having dinner, and I pull out my cell phone, and I take ChatGPT conversational.
Yeah.
And first I interview him real fast. Tell me a little bit about your daughter. When did she really come into her own? And that's part of the magic that he didn't know how to do. But I just dictated it into the phone, and it came up with the base letter that he could write.
Yeah, beautiful.
He was so excited about that opera. He calls me the next morning. I've already done 15 different notes on it, and he was very accepting
Productivity,
of it.
creativity. There you go.
And when people are polled, we think that 64% of us say we have a lot more creativity in ourselves than we can share, or it's maybe we only express 64% of our creativity. And this is a tool for more people
to unlock their creativity and their potential.
Absolutely.
I've always said generative AI will make us more human, and generative AI will make us far more creative and productive than we've ever been.
Yeah. Well, hey, exciting talk. I really appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. We can keep talking for a while, I love this conversation. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it, man.
Hey, we're back at Ai4, and I got to tell you, one of the most charismatic people that we've met here at the conference is the man sitting right to the right of me. Harvey Castro is an emergency room doctor, but more than that, he's really emerged as a leading thought leader in AI in healthcare. And he's working on a product right now which will help clinicians determine if a patient has a high likelihood of falling.
Yeah.
Did I get that right, Harvey?
You hit it perfect. And I'm going to elaborate. As an ER doctor, I've seen so many patients that fall and they get this thing called rhabdomyolysis where they literally will break down their muscle and it's because of a fall. Or I'll see them fall, break their hip at a nursing home, and then I know that usually the mortality is really high. And so when I met my business partner and he told me he had this device, I thought, oh my God, this will save lives. And then I kind of pushed him and I said, let's use generative AI and let's use the voice and let's take it to the next level so that if that person was born in the 40s and let's just pretend they really love Elvis Presley, let's get the rights to Elvis Presley's voice and then have Elvis tell her not to get out of bed. Let's have fun with this. And then I said, why keep it at the hospital? We all have aging parents and loved ones. Why not have these devices in people's homes so that if your mom's not taking her medicine on time, you can be like, hey mom, you forgot to take your medicine. Or if she took it twice, you can be like, whoa, don't take your meds again. You already took them today.
Well, that's fascinating. And one of the things that interests me about you, Dr. Castro, is you were an early convert to generative AI. You wrote the first book about generative AI in healthcare. That was in 2022?
Yes, sir.
What was the name of the book?
It was called ChatGPT in Healthcare.
What fascinated you about generative AI? You're a doctor, and most doctors have thoroughly rejected this, most healthcare professionals, but you were different. Tell me about that.
Yeah, so I was sitting in my office. I don't know how I stumbled on OpenAI, and I started asking it questions and more questions, and literally within 5 minutes I said, this is going to change healthcare. If it can give these kind of outputs, I could already see how this could work.
So outputs in its accuracy or in its empathy or what?
All of the above. For what I was thinking right off the bat, I thought this is pretty good for just, day one. And I started thinking, well, you could do this in clinical trials. You could do this in a patient interaction. You could do this in the clinic. And I literally couldn't stop thinking, and I just started writing it all down. And within 3 weeks, I pushed the book out and had it out. Just because I just kept seeing different applications.
And you've gone much further. You have your own avatar?
Yes.
That you use to,
yes.
What do you use your avatar for?
So this was fun. So over the time, over the 2 years, I've written probably over 18 books on how to use AI in healthcare. When the Apple Vision Pro came out, I put them on and I said, okay, I see how you could do this in medicine. So I literally took all my books, all these interviews, all my podcasts, blogs, anytime I was on TV, and I put it into a SaaS model, or just a model. And now you can go to my website and have a conversation with me.
And what's your website?
It's Harvey Castro, MD as in medical doctor.com. And then it's under resources. There's like a little magic wand at the bottom and you'll just hit it. And literally you can say, where did Harvey go to med school? Was he ever on Fox News? And it'll answer you. And it'll tell you what I said during that interview.
Now, you're an ER physician, right? I imagine that was your life's goal.
Yeah.
But now your career has gone in a new trajectory.
Yeah.
You happy with that? Had you seen that? Had you wanted more? What was the journey?
At the end of the day, the doctor in me just wants to do the greater good. What can I do? And I love being a doctor one-on-one, but I realize if I can create some tool that helps the masses, now I'm helping millions. And if I can educate the different doctors that are against AI to see the light and say, you know what, now I see how this works, and I also know how not to use it, now I'm helping doctors to help other people.
And so let's talk about how not to use it. What are the risks associated with GPT and generative AI in healthcare?
Yeah. The problem in healthcare, obviously, if you make a mistake, it's people's lives. It's not like you're going to make a bad bet on a stock and you lose money. This is someone's life. And so when it comes to an error, we have to hold this really high because we can't afford mistakes.
Can't afford inaccuracies.
Exactly. And so if I ask a question of AI, I call it, we need to obviously have the human in the loop. It's the doctor plus AI that's better than just the doctor or just the AI. And it's that clinical gestalt that says, you know what, that's wrong and that is correct, and to be able to navigate those waters carefully. So when it comes to education, there's something called the RAG model. Just say it's different ways of diabetes can present, and maybe it's like 20 different ways, and then the bot is teaching the medical student those 20 different ways. I think that's a better way of learning than going through a textbook and then maybe not catching that pattern recognition and having the AI drill you. And so I see that as a plus.
So with regard to patient use of AI, where do you stand on that? Where the patient comes in and is self-directing the physician all of a sudden?
That one, I'm fine teaching doctors because I know at the end of the day, some state regulator gave them a license to be a doctor. With patients, I don't know where their education is for healthcare. And obviously, it's a bell curve. Some people know a lot of medicine and they're not doctors, and some really don't. My worry is that ChatGPT is so convincing that they don't know that it's telling them the wrong thing. And so when it comes to patients, I take it back a step and I say, if you're going to use AI, keep your doctor or healthcare professional in the loop. Do not use that information until you get the blessing from a professional. Then I say, if you really want to use this, use it for your use before you come see me. Meaning, if you have diabetes, hypertension, let's make a list of all the questions you have, but have ChatGPT help you formulate those questions. The average person only gets 13 minutes with their doctor. But what if you had ChatGPT that gave you the questions, the follow-up questions, and you came in ready to go? We would have a better 13 minutes.
So where do you think this is going? You know, I was talking to one firm that does synthetic clinical trials, right? They create personas using AI, and they say it's much more thorough because they can really tease out different demographics or different specific genomic predilections or predispositions. What are some of the most funky things that you see in medicine that AI could help solve?
You know, one of the interesting things I saw recently is a blood test that 7 years before the blood test tells you if you have Parkinson's disease. And it's through AI analyzing different markers and different data, and they were able to figure out which ones. Or lung cancer. As an ER doctor, we do x-rays all the time, and we get these reports that say, you have a nodule, and I go to the patient and say, okay, there's this little nodule. We don't know if it's cancerous, it's probably benign, but you probably have to check it once a year. They've been able to do studies now that those nodules, now they can predict if they are going to be cancerous or not. And they can do it 20 years ahead of time, which is crazy.
Yeah, it is. If there's a treatment for Parkinson's, do you want to know
exactly
that you have a 7-year burn? What do you think? Is that of value?
Yes and no. I'm a positive person thinking 7 years from now, we may have a cure. Or maybe now, if I know ahead of time, maybe there's a way I can slow the disease down. Or maybe I can start looking at clinical trials and see what's out there that I can be proactive and see if I can be part of that, as opposed to not knowing and then the disease process has passed.
Well, we were talking before this. You shared with me that you're working with the government of Singapore and you're consulting. So if you had a ground-up healthcare system, where would you start and where would AI be applied?
Ooh, that's a good one. I'm really big on predictive analytics. If they have the data, why not use that data to predict if that patient should go home? Should they stay? Should we use X drug? Should we use Y drug? Because yes, I have clinical gestalt of 20 years, but I'm not a computer. I've only read so much. But if I could use my brain, my clinical gestalt, my experience plus AI, and do a better accuracy prediction on you as a patient, I'm a better doctor than if I just don't use it.
Well, Dr. Castro, you certainly have the energy and you certainly have the charisma to carry this message. I congratulate you because it's so resistant out there, especially among physicians and doctors, and what AI will do. They think it's going to replace them, and it's just going to, I think, augment and improve patient outcomes in the long run.
I agree.
So thanks for being in the vanguard, and thanks for being here with us today.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.
Hey, we're back. It's day 2 from AI4. What a conference. Boy, we had our panel discussion this morning. It went very well. We probably had 100 people in the room. We were talking about how to deploy AI throughout the enterprise, something that we've done very successfully at Gregory FCA. It was a great response because everyone on the panel was about compliance and privacy, and I seem to have been the only one that was actually deploying within an organization. And now we're going to flip and we're going to talk about a little bit about Internet of Things and AI and how that can be improved in various aspects. I'm here with Scott Gerard. He's a PhD and a researcher, and he works as a consultant in that field. Did I get that right, or did I screw it up?
No, that's right. That's what I do.
And you were telling me some of your work has to do with the electrical grid and some of the things you can monitor. So give me a case study. How would AI help manage assets out in the field?
Well, one of the examples that we did was there are these large power transformers, 10,000 volt transformers. Each one of them is down converting power for a neighborhood, so like 100 homes, right? But there were like 40 of them in this European city. You don't want to have to roll trucks all the time to go out to these things because that's expensive and time consuming. So what we did is we had a IoT device that measured like 13 dimensions of this transformer: temperature, pressure, humidity, light, sound, electromagnetic radiation that was coming off of the device. And we went in and built an AI model. Now, this isn't generative AI. This is just like traditional AI, predictive AI.
The hard stuff, not like the stuff I do. Like, write me a news release about my great company.
That's right.
Right.
And so we were looking for anomalies in the device. And, anomalies are occurring about 1/100th of 1% of the time. But from an operations point of view, it's great. Instead of having to have people watching all of these transformers all the time, it's like, I'll pop up something, this one is the one you need to look at now. You don't need to worry about the rest.
Is that all coming from signals? Or are you doing past data on maintenance or anything like that?
We trained it on past data, but the application was running live in the... They're actually in these enclosures, and you have to have special training to even go into the enclosure because it's such high voltage. But if you put the device in there, we can measure what's going on, and it is reporting back to the operations center, but it's running live. But it can't touch the device. The guys who built the IoT device itself had to be disconnected from it. They were in the same enclosure, but they were just kind of watching it from like 6 feet away.
So what other applications would this be? And give me some idea in supply chain and manufacturing and how you would do this in a similar business, perhaps.
I think manufacturing is a great example. There's a lot of devices on the manufacturing floor. They all have their own signatures of what is normal for that device. And of course, that can change as the system ages, as it's repaired and as it's replaced. So you need to be rebuilding these models periodically to keep it current. But all of my devices on the floor, are they okay, or are some of them in trouble? Do I need to go do something with that?
So talk to me about the show and who have you seen here? I mean, I've been amazed at the amount of people. 5,000 people. Yesterday, it was like the good old times of trade shows. The aisles were packed. People were stopping by. What were your hopes for the show, and what have they met your expectations?
Well, I was here last year as an attendee, and it was about half the size last year. It was a great show last year, and that's why I kind of decided to come back. But I came back with a booth, and I'm a speaker at this show. But wow, I agree. There are just a bazillion people here, like 5,000 plus or something.
What was your talk on?
My talk was on AIoT. AI is much broader than just generative AI.
Walk us through that, because everybody in the world is familiar with ChatGPT and what it does with large language models, but this is nothing new. I mean, it's new for us in the regular world because ChatGPT awakened it and gave us an easy way to access LLMs. But what other forms are out there that you'd want the world to know?
Well, you know, in one sense, well, in every sense, generative AI has exploded into the public press and in the public's imagination and awareness. There are people that aren't really aware of it yet, but they're getting fewer and fewer. Generative AI is poked through, and I think it's mostly because you can go out to these generative, to OpenAI, and you can type in it like you said you were doing, right? Everybody can go type and find out and play with it. The AI that I do, it's harder to do that with. Now, one of the applications for generative AI in the IoT space, I think, is for giving a human user interface to some of these IoT devices. And so that's one of the interesting use cases for it.
Yeah, I'm seeing that a lot. I mean, a lot of data-rich projects, if you can apply natural language to them for an enterprise, you give them easier access. They can be accessed by a different level of skilled employee all of a sudden instead of a computer scientist. A manager can access them all of a sudden.
Even a manager.
That would be less than skilled in how to manipulate data to see it. And that was one of the great things about ChatGPT. When it came through, we became, because my PR agency creates a lot of content, we became coders of language. And we could never do that before. We'd always looked at it as a kind of mysterious process of the storytelling that was somehow within a neural network of your brain. But all of a sudden, we could stop and we could identify those elements of language and ask the machine to generate them. So you became a kind of a natural language coder. And it was a fascinating phenomenon, especially for those of us who knew how to create and write, because it leveraged our time so well instead of having to pick every piece of data, which in our world is the comma, the period, the colon, the semicolon, the verb, the adjective. So it really did awaken the world to it. But
well, many, many years ago, calculators came on the scene, and that was another technology that was very accessible by students, by everybody, right? And it helped you do arithmetic. ChatGPT is kind of a calculator for words. It can generate stuff for you, and I think I'm a pretty good writer, but wow, ChatGPT, I use it a lot because it is, like you said, it's very fast. But I also then will use it and say, I'll read through it and say, I like this part, I like that phrase, this is just not right, and so I'll strike it. The one thing that I tell people is, don't ever blame ChatGPT or these large language models and say, I didn't, it's what it told me, I just used it. You're responsible, you're accountable. If your name is on it, you're accountable for what it says. If you don't like something, strike it, change it, whatever. But it's a great productivity tool.
It is. I want to thank you for being with us, Scott.
Gregory, it's a pleasure.
Good conversation, and best of luck with Knowledge Reactor, your firm, and how you're building a connection between AI and the Internet of Things. So,
thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Hey, we're back at Ai4. What a day. This is, I guess, our 6th podcast here from the show. It's just been nonstop. 5,000 people. It is like old times here in the trade show business with all these people from all over the world. My guest is joining me from Deepkeep. That's a cybersecurity company really based on AI. Rony, thanks for being with us.
My pleasure.
Tell me about this whole AI cybersecurity revolution and what it means to enterprises.
So, today in every industry, they start to use AI But AI-based system is vulnerable to new types of threats, risks, and attacks, which unlike traditional cyber attacks that are usually caused by software bugs or human error or misconfiguration, in AI, every AI-based system is inherently vulnerable to new types of threats, risks, and attacks. And that's why, the classical cybersecurity solution, it is excellent, but it is not relevant to protect against the new threats on AI.
So help me identify some of those new threats. What are bad players doing that's different with AI?
Okay, so in AI, nobody developed an AI model from scratch. Everybody is using the ecosystem. So starting with downloading a model from an open source, a repository like Hugging Face and other. And the problem is that attackers today put malware, poisoning, backdoors in models and also in dataset. So enterprise that downloads the model, it already has malware, backdoor, poisoning. Now, even if they will add their own data, they will retrain the model, etc., it will usually still be there, the malware, the poisoning, and the backdoor. So this is totally new types of attack. It's not the classical cyber malware. It is only for AI.
And even in the major models, this happens with a download of Claude or whatever?
So usually you will have many variations of those foundation models that you can find, the one that is very heavy, but then you will find other open source that will say, this is a lighter model, we improved this issue, we improved this issue, we improved this issue, and inside there are also malwares. And enterprise don't know that, and when downloading the model, then actually they have part of their pipelines, malware.
So help me out, I'm naive. Is it that bad actors are creating these models with the malware in it, or is there some in between where someone's injecting it during the process?
So there are many ways to do that. You have mentioned two of them, but there are many other ways to do that. So in some of the cases, attackers they take the same model, then they add some kind of malware, and then they say that it is an improved model, and then they, then they put it in an open source, in a repository, and it already have malware, poisoning, and backdoors. But in addition to that, you have to know that it is not enough. I mean, even if you will clean it, and we are doing it, we are scanning models for malware, poisoning, backdoors, in the model, in the data set, but even if you will find that it is clean, still when the system is in production, there are other types of attacks. For example, for large language models, there are prompt injection, jailbreaking, etc. So there are hundreds of attacks that when the model is already in production. So you need to cover the entire AI lifecycle, starting from downloading a model or software or an open source, until and mainly when it is already in production.
So how do you use AI to inoculate the enterprise against those kinds of attacks?
Perfect. So we have built in Deepkeep, we have built a Gen AI-based platform that includes 4 pillars. The first one is risk assessment. So we can take any kind of model or data set, and by a press of a button you can click, and we will find all the vulnerabilities that exist in these models. If there is a malware, poisoning, or backdoor, we will clean it. But we will find other vulnerabilities that you have. So we will add our own software to make the model, to harden the model, and to make it robust. But this is done periodically. In real time, what we have, it is like AI or LLM firewall. So it is a firewall dedicated to attacks on AI. So usually, you have the classical firewalls in the cyber industry. You need a special one for AI. And our firewall, by the way, it is a bidirectional firewall, meaning that it handles not only cyber attacks or attacks on AI, but also privacy issue, trustworthiness issue. Like, for example, you probably heard that AI models tend to hallucinate, tend to talk with toxic language, are biased. So in our platform, we target security, privacy, and trustworthiness in the same platform.
So is this an ongoing arms race? As you try to correct it, they learn from that and they make adjustments also? Is there ever ending, or is it just a total hamster wheel.
Yeah, absolutely. There are always, there is a race between the attackers and the protectors. But what we did in order to handle also zero-day attack or attacks that are unknown is we built our platform by itself based on Gen AI. So using Gen AI, we are able also to detect vulnerabilities that do not exist today, but that they may happen in the future, and to protect from those vulnerabilities as well.
Now stop. That's interesting to me. Is it the machine is making predictions as to where the vulnerability will be tomorrow? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, in a way, you train the machine. So, for example, like you have LLMs, specific LLMs that it can answer questions that are new questions. It is the same also for cyber protection. We trained an LLM to be able to provide protection, so to learn what kind of attack may happen, and also to protect from those attacks as well.
So you built a hacker, in other words.
A good hacker.
Right, that works for you.
That works for us,
and
exactly.
Constantly thinking of creative ways to penetrate an enterprise.
Yes, you need to think what attackers can think and what they can do with AI, and to provide the right protection for them as well.
So where does this go? I mean, if the machine can learn these things, how smart can it get? And where is it going?
So as you have mentioned, it will be for the... I mean, AI security is a big issue. It is a big challenge. Because today, enterprises do not know how to protect from the vulnerabilities of AI. And so, we think we built a very good platform that can have protection of almost, I would say, 100%, almost, because there are always things that you didn't think of, but it is evolving. So the hacker will have new types of attack, and we will find new solutions for that. And this is why, our platform is dynamic and adaptive. So every time there is a new threats or publish new papers, etc., so we train our platform accordingly.
That's wild. Now, what's your story? How did you get into this, Rony?
So 16 years ago, I co-founded another company called Ai4. And in this company, we had a joint venture with AP, the news agency, trying to detect the next breaking news using AI, but also to fight against fake news in AI. So it was the very early days of AI. It was 10 years ago.
Stop for a second. Was it successful in identifying the next breaking news story?
Partially. It was the very early days of AI. With AI today, you can do much. There was no LLM, there was no Gen AI at these days. So it was a classical AI. So partially. Right now, you can do much better things.
Because we're going to come back to it. Keep going.
Okay. And then I saw how it is easy to mislead the AI-based system. After that, I founded another company called DriveU, providing teleoperation solution for autonomous robots and autonomous driving system. And I saw how it is easy to mislead computer vision-based system. Then I said, well, it happens in language model, it happens in computer vision model. Let's check other types of model. And I saw that for every AI-based model, attackers can attack the model. Attackers can put poisoning, malware, backdoor, can mislead the AI-based model, steal some personal data, steal even models. So we decided, to go for Deepkeep and to build the right platform to protect AI-based system, targeting big enterprises, so big banks, big insurance companies, automotive companies, and in general, big enterprises.
Well, I'm going to go back because I'm a PR agency, and part of our job is to try to predict what the next breaking story would be so that we can put our clients in that story. Do you think with AI as it is today, that could become more fine-tuned than what you were working on 16 years ago? Is that something you think is in the realm of possibilities?
Yes, absolutely. Today, if you are using the right tool, you can fine-tune your foundation model to do some specific tasks. Because if you will use, the public LLMs that you have today, it's good, but not accurate. You cannot count on it. If you will fine-tune your AI model for those specific tasks, you are able to get much more accuracy. Still, you will need, solution to make sure that it is trusted, that that.
So you would fine-tune it on past breaking news and how it cascades, how it breaks over time. And that could give you some insight.
Correct.
That's
yes,
wild.
absolutely.
And so you took that to the cybersecurity world.
Yes, because in the cybersecurity, you know, you will always have the enemies that try, you know, to take the state of the art that exists and to fight against you. So here we will see a battle that will continue in the upcoming years. And you know, in a way, today security, you know, avoids the mass deployment of AI.
Well, that's been a fascinating conversation, Rony. I thank you for taking the time. I hope you're seeing success here today because you got a dynamite company really helping a lot of enterprises across the globe and something that's desperately needed, particularly right now because there's such a trust issue with AI in many ways, and it's being waged by many forces, right? Those that just don't know better to those that are doing it for competitive reasons. You don't know. So best of luck to you, and thanks for your time.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to be here today.
All right, Rony.
Thanks.
We've got one more podcast on the day, and it's something I'm really interested in because search really does impact PR, public relations impacts search, and the new world of AI opens all kinds of opportunity. And a guy who knows more than anybody about that is my guest, Manick, and he's with Search Atlas. He's CEO. He's been at this game for a long time. Really want to probe you as to what's going on, how AI is playing a bigger role in search, and will search even exist in the new world of AI? So help us out. Tell me a little bit about what your thoughts are about the impact of AI on search.
Sure. Thanks, Craig. Great to be here. I'm Manick, founder of Search Atlas Group. We've been studying search and unpacking its secrets for the last decade about. And obviously, we have a very vested, because we've been building technology in this industry now for 7 years. We have a very vested outcome in search being relevant. And so that question's kept me up at night quite a bit. Is Google still going to be the search engine of choice in 1, 2, 5, 10 years from now?
What's going to happen? I mean, I saw Perplexity's user numbers just went through the roof because it's AI driven and it's more narrative driven than Google is, and people love it. So. Yeah. You know, what is the future of search, do you think?
The future of search is actually, I hesitate a little bit because the future is very interesting. It's very complicated. Google's not going anywhere, first and foremost, because ultimately, when we look at the numbers, we look at how the search behavior has shifted in the last 1 year with the advent of Perplexity, of course, but more importantly, OpenAI, ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, Llama. What we've actually seen is that people are still going back to Google to perform their searches. People perform more searches per session on Google. It's about 35 queries per session. Perplexity is only like 2 or 3. And so while we've seen more people use these LLMs like Perplexity and others, the overall market share is still very much in Google's court. What we've seen is that the search market share has actually expanded, where people are performing searches now on other platforms, so the market's gotten bigger overall, and Google's market share has actually stayed relatively constant.
So what are the game rules of getting search on Google, and how is that going to change now that people tend to use OpenAI more, which I don't think it's an effective search engine. It was never built to be a search engine, right? But what are the game rules, and will we have to readjust the way we create content and thought leadership, how we extend our brand online? What are your thoughts about the transition?
Yeah, I think the rules for maintaining visibility in the future are shifting. It's more important now than ever to make sure you have your brand be visible online, not just in one channel, but across all search channels. And that story encompasses more than it did before. It used to be that we could really SEO our landing pages, our website, our content to optimize for Google. But in the new era of search, it's also important to maintain visibility in the LLMs. So how do we do that?
Right.
LLMs draw their data from a number of data sources. They're very preferential to high quality sites, news sites. So you'll be happy to hear that the PR approach lends itself very, very well to being found on those news sites. You want to make sure that, your brand story can be found on reputable news outlets. So press releases, very core to how we do that. But it goes beyond that, even to other niche forums, let's say like Reddit, like Tumblr, like Twitter, making sure that our brands are also visible on those social media platforms and that we've crafted our story in a positive way on those platforms is important because actually, did you know that Llama, which is Facebook's model, uses Facebook data?
Yeah,
Grok,
I did know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Grok uses
X. Right? And Google uses Reddit a little bit more than the others. So you got to make sure your presence is really omni-channel. You want to be everywhere. And in the future of search, on Google specifically, because that's the one that I think is the most important and relevant for businesses that are doing that. Because remember, Google is an intent-based search engine. When I want something, I search for it.
Right.
On Meta, or TikTok, it's discovery-driven. I don't know that I want a fidget spinner, but I see one and I want one, right? So it's a different paradigm. Ultimately, the intent being higher on Google makes it the most relevant platform and the most important that we have to maintain visibility on. And the rules there's actually 4 pillars to search. It's not that complicated. It's always been 4, and it will always be 4. Those 4 are authority, content, technicals, and UX and user behavior. Those are the signals that Google uses.
Now, walk me through. You recently acquired a press release distribution company, the 4th largest. Let's talk about that. Why would you be doing that? What is the strategic advantage for you? I mean, over my career, there's been this ebb and flow with regard to press release distribution, right? There for a while, you did it. There were actually bureaus around the country for news release distribution, and there were actually machines in newsrooms where reporters would go to and look over news release distribution. Then that ran out of vogue. It wasn't effective, and so it became more of a need for SEO, right? You do this for SEO. So what's the alignment of your strategy in acquiring the firm? What is it? What is the firm?
Yeah, so they're called Signal Genesis. Signal Genesis is the 4th largest press release distribution service on the planet today. And what caught my eye about them is that they're the only press release service that actually has SEO in mind, first and foremost. The biggest problem with every other press release service out there's so many problems, but the first problem is that they print to their newsroom first. So if you use PR Newswire, prnewswire.com gets that press release before anyone else does. So when Google indexes it, they index their newsroom, and then they index all the reprints, okay? But they see all the reprints as being duplicates, as being redundant to the original source of the news. So people, when they're looking for that press release, will go back to PR Newswire, and they will read it there. I hated that. I never liked that. I thought it was the real point of this was we want to get picked up on all these news sites. We want people to find us on those news sites. But what PR Newswire and all the other press release distribution services out there, including Business Wire, what they do is they cannibalize the authority. They make sure that they are the authors. They are the authorship of that press release, and everyone else in Google's eyes might as well not even have been printed on, which is horrible. So what we've done with Signal Genesis, and what they did even before I got there and bought the company, was that they realized that they should not be the authors of the press release. They want the news media to be the authors, so that when Google sees the content, they see it on the news sites first. So that was the first big innovation, was realizing that we could not cannibalize the authority, and we could pass the authority to the news sites, and they will pass it to our clients. So we get a much better SEO outcome there. The second thing, and this is really cool, is we're the pioneers of something that's called dynamic press releases. Every press release that's reprinted is a facsimile of the original press release,
That's
right?
right.
It's the same exact thing. Why would Google want to index 100 of the exact same press release? They don't. What happens is they discard everything after the first one. So what we did is we said, well, why don't we take the press release and let's manipulate it slightly. So it's the same message, it's the same story, it's the same data, generally speaking, but we're going to make that press release slightly revised.
This is really interesting. Now, what's the level, the degree of change in the release?
The release is, the title will be slightly different. The heading will be a little bit different. It'll be the same message, but just maybe 3 to 5% different.
And that's all you need.
And that's all that's needed.
It's interesting because yesterday we sent out a news release about our own productivity with regard to AI in our firm. It was good news. We're seeing 10% productivity increases using, now that we're totally AI enabled. That's a lot, right?
Huge.
We're a $20 million firm, that's $2 million, right, of additional revenue. And if you look at the results, right, just what you said, first comes Business Wire, and then underneath it, there's a PR trade publication that carried it, and its headline is just slightly different. But it appeared second, right? It didn't see it as identical, even though it was abbreviated and it was identical almost. So that's a brilliant strategy.
Imagine we do that on 100 sites now, and now you Google that press release, or you Google your business or your client's business, and you don't just see one press release appear, but you see 100 appear on top-tier sites.
And that's where the AI comes in.
That's where the AI comes in, yeah. We're the pioneers of that technology.
And so when does this go live? When does the AI, let's call it customization for lack of a better term, instead of manipulation? Sounds better.
It sounds better. Customization.
Let's stick with that. When is that available?
Already available. We started working on it a month before we announced the acquisition. So when we announced it, we could actually show the community that we're not just buying the company, but we're investing into that company. We're fortifying it. We have a 40-person engineering force to complement the 8 great developers that are already part of this company. So together, we're almost 50 people, developers, engineering, building the future of press release capabilities and SEO. So we already made that advancement, and we moved the industry forward, and you can already get that on signalgenesis.com.
Well, then let's do a test. You ready? So I went out with the productivity release. Now I could go out on a release that identifies the 5 key elements that made our deployment successful, right? And we'll have Signal Genesis run it, make a difference, and we can see that process play out. How's that sound?
Yeah.
All right, that sounds good.
And let's also look at the SEO impact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I think you got some interesting things brewing, that's for sure.
We've been in the lab figuring out the secrets of Google, the science behind it, because it's a science. It's not magic, it's math, right? And we actually created something that's called Auto, OTTO. And what Auto is essentially automating the holistic SEO framework for how SEO is done. And I've been doing this for 7 years, so long time. And this has been in large part my main focus for all that time is figuring out how Google works. The technology got to a point now with Auto that now I can give you Auto. You could install it on any website. Doesn't matter what that website is. And I can almost guarantee you within 2 weeks, you will see a pop in SEO traffic, pop in online visibility, and through the press releases, greater visibility in large language models as well as they pick up that content. Huge impact.
So what does it do? Does it optimize your website?
So yeah, it's not fairy dust. It's not just some magic fairy dust we sprinkle on the site. It basically takes everything that the SEO community has been saying we have to do, and some things that they said we have to do that we actually don't have to do because a lot of people in the industry sell snake oil. There's a lot of BS in the SEO world, tons of it. So what we actually have done is we have an experiments team. We spend about $20,000 a month just on experiments and testing. We'll take 5 test sites. We change one thing and one thing only on those test sites, and then we wait and we watch and we see what happens. If we see an uptick in traffic, we can conclude that's an effective strategy, right? If we see nothing happen, then we know that was BS. And so we're kind of the mythbusters in our industry. And we've been myth busting for 7 years. And everything that works has been baked into the software solution called Auto.
Well, it's interesting. It's really is the nexus between PR, AI, search. It's been an interesting conversation. I wish you the best of luck, and I do want to do that test with you and see how we could differentiate ourselves in the market. I love being the first to market with anything that's new, and particularly in my role to introduce it to clients. They're all looking for the little edge, and I need to stay current on that. So thanks for coming, and thanks for sharing your insights.
My pleasure to be here, Greg. Thank you so much for having me.
This podcast is a production of Gregory FCA. If you enjoyed our discussion today and want to continue exploring the transformative power of AI, please check out more episodes and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.